What is going on, Clutch Crew Sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. My name is Connor, the co-host with the most, and today we're going to be discussing some NFL Week 17 topics. I'm sure everyone who's tuning into this podcast knows already now about the Antonio Brown situation, how he walked off the field and was released by the Bucs mere hours later. So we're going to be talking about that and the impact it could have on the Buccaneers. We're also going to discuss Ben Roethlisberger. We're recording this on Sunday. Tomorrow will be his, probably, most likely, who knows, his last game at Heinz Field. Just reflect a little bit on his career as a player. We're then going to go into our games of the week and then discuss the lockboard. It was a good week for the lockboard, but looks like we potentially could have a winner on the lockboard this week. And we're going to close with some discussion about the potential 2022 NFL Hall of Fame class. So we got a lot for you. I hope you enjoy it. And now let's introduce you to the rest of the crew.
What's up, everyone? It's Zach here. I still don't have a saying. Eric's the ranting co-host. Connor's the co-host with the most, and I just haven't come up with a saying yet. So I really need to find out.
Need to get on that.
You're the creator, man.
Yeah. But I need something to host. I just need
something catchier.
Yeah. But yeah, another disappointing week for the Jaguars. Obviously, I stopped watching at halftime for anybody that wanted an over/under on when I would turn the game off. It was about halftime. Yeah. So all I can say is fire Trent Baalke.
And this is Eric, the ranting co-host here. Also, hashtag fire Trent Baalke. He's a bum and he needs to get out of town. So he sucks. Anyway, definitely got a lot to talk about here. So I'm looking forward to it. Hope you guys enjoy it as well.
All right, a lot of fire Trent Baalke there going on.
Also make your if you're listening to this, even if you're not a Jags fan, just look at all the people that are Jaguars fans that have made their profile pictures a clown with a mustache on it and do the same and put hashtag fire Trent Baalke.
Solidarity with us.
Just throw it all over. Like, us Jags fans, we deserve a break, man. We deserve something new and better. Like, if there's any team that deserves something positive, it's us. So please just help us out. Come on.
Well, hey, I mean, you're going to be getting the number 1 draft pick again, so, could be something there.
That's not enough. If Trent Baalke is the GM, he'll do something stupid with it anyway. So we got it.
He'll be like, Trevor's not the answer, and take Kenny Pickett with the number 1 overall pick or something.
Or he'll be like, we'll trade down to the 20th pick, and we'll get a 3rd round pick in return. Or do something stupid, dude. Like, get rid of them. I didn't expect to start off the show like this. Sorry.
I mean, I can't imagine what y'all are going through, but I'm sure it's not good. So we're going to go around the shield to start. And like I said at the start, we all know the news by now about Antonio Brown. I don't remember when exactly in the game this was. I was at lunch when this game was going on, so I didn't actually get to see it, but thankfully Zach informed me about it. He took off his shoulder pads, took off his jersey, took off everything basically but his pants, and he gave a peace sign to the crowd and walked off the field. And, like I said, about an hour later, Bruce Arians announced that he had been released from the team. Obviously, this has been a long-going saga with Antonio Brown back to his days in Pittsburgh. He had the whole kind of semi-meltdown sort of where he was getting all upset that Juju was doing better than him, and then obviously the Steelers wanted to trade him, so they traded him to the Raiders for like a 3rd round pick or something. And then he went I guess they were still Oakland at that time. And he had the whole thing where he got frostbite on his toes or something. And then, all these things came out about him. Well, he got traded to the Patriots and then played a couple games there, but then a bunch of things came out about him with like sexual harassment and all that sort of stuff. So he had to sit out then. Then he kind of got this relationship going with Tom Brady and moved to Tampa and convinced him to move to Tampa. And it looked like maybe he was turning around in the right direction. Like Tom Brady had kind of transformed him and gotten him better. And well, now this has happened. So If I'm guessing, I mean, I said this last time when he left the Patriots, but this time I think for real he will never play another down in the NFL. I don't see why anyone would waste their time on him. But I'm going to ask Zach first, obviously, since he's the resident Bucs expert. What do you think this does for the Tampa Bay Bucs going in the future? Because obviously, we saw he still has quite a lot of talent as a player and was a good piece on that offense. So how do you think this is going to affect them going forward?
Yeah, it definitely hurts, especially with the Godwin injury too. If Godwin was healthy, I would say this isn't as big of a loss. Him and Brady still had a really good connection though. So it's a pretty significant loss, and there's not much time now to prepare, for life without him. They did, and something I was going to say from the Bucs perspective is I think there was a lot of Bucs fans and a lot of people in general that were surprised that Arians kept him on the team after the fake vaccine card from a couple weeks ago, because Arians' thing all along, ever since he signed him going back to last year, was, you're on strike too, basically. That you can't have any more mistakes. You can't have anything to hurt your record or anything like that. And he'd been clean for a while. I mean, I think there'd been some maybe minor like incidents, like penalties and dumb stuff that he was doing there, but he didn't have anything like he had in Oakland or Pittsburgh going on.
It was more like on the field stuff rather than off the field stuff.
Yeah. But then when he faked the vaccine card and then he ended up being suspended for that, I thought, especially, and at the time too, Godwin was still healthy, so they had the full cast and everything. So I thought for sure, all right, you just got to get rid of him now. Like you can't keep enabling him, and that's what people are saying is what happened here. Is he basically saw that, okay, the league suspended me for the fake vaccine card, but the Buccaneers did nothing, so I can get away with whatever I want. And this is what happened in Pittsburgh too. Every time he kept getting away with something, he kept getting worse and worse. And then this, obviously, it's a no-brainer. You can't keep him after he does something like this. But I can't say I'm totally surprised. I don't think Bucs fans are totally surprised either about this happening. Probably the whole NFL could see something like this happening, and we would guess it would be Antonio Brown. So I do think it hurts their chances as a team and everything like that. They're definitely going to need these other receivers to step up without him.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Like you said, I think if Godwin was still there, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But with Godwin being hurt for, a long-term injury, basically now all they have is in the receiver core is Mike Evans. But now teams can really start to key on him. They don't have to worry about Godwin or Brown. So, but I'll ask Eric now too. So, because I know a lot of people, kind of point to, they've been saying that Antonio Brown has like mental health issues and all that. A lot of people say that he was never the same. This other picture I have down here is a game I remember very well as a Steelers fan. I think this was from 2015, if I remember correctly, the playoffs when the Steelers were trying to go down and get a game-winning field goal, and Antonio Brown, like Roethlisberger, threw it to him, and Vontaze Burfict came through and like took his shoulder pad right to Antonio Brown's head. Brown was unconscious, missed the rest of the playoffs for a concussion. And, like I said, it seems like to a lot of people, he hasn't ever been right since then. So I'll ask Eric quickly, I don't know, what do you think could potentially be going on with him? Like, do you think it's all, he's just a drama queen, he's an overpaid athlete, all that? Or do you think there could be some sort of mental health problem going on there?
And in my honest opinion, obviously I'm no doctor or anything, so obviously I can't make any kind of diagnosis or anything like that. But just in my opinion, I really feel like it is a mental health issue because he has had several, well, maybe not several, but he's had multiple concussions. And that one, especially by Burfict there, I mean, that was brutal. I mean, that was that wasn't just any ordinary concussion where maybe you're a little woozy for a couple of days. I mean, he missed the whole rest of the playoffs and after that. And it does seem like ever since that happened is when all of this stuff started happening. I mean, and it really is scary. I mean, I obviously, I know a lot of people are, poking fun at this and making a lot of jokes about it and stuff. And because obviously this isn't something you see happen very often in the NFL, So, but to me, it's just scary, man. I really worry that he might do something to himself one day later down the road, or he might do something to somebody else later down the road. And in my honest opinion, he really needs help. He really needs some kind of counseling or therapy. He really needs help because this is just not normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
I don't really know. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree because I know, like, I remember I used to look back on, kind of right before all this happened was when, the Steelers were dealing with that drama with Le'Veon Bell. And I remember thinking to myself, like, because at that point, it'd been a while since I gotten a jersey. And this was before the Steelers had drafted TJ Watt, which was the one I ended up getting as my next one. But I was thinking to myself, like, man, I want to get like an Antonio Brown jersey because, like, he's a really stand up guy. Like, he's one of the leaders on the team. He's one of the hardest workers. Like, just ask the coaches. They'll tell you he's one of the hardest workers. He's not, a drama queen, whatever like Le'Veon Bell is. And then, the ironic thing is, look what's happened now. Like, everything Antonio Brown has done, like, pales in comparison to the drama that Le'Veon Bell started. So,
yeah, I mean, because you look at all the stuff that happened even after he got traded, because at first when it happened in Pittsburgh, it was like, okay, whatever, he's frustrated with the whole Juju thing, and he wants to go somewhere else, and he feels like he's not the star anymore, so he wants to go somewhere else to shine. But then you look at all the stuff that happened with the Raiders organization. I mean, and he was only there maybe a month or two or something.
I
I
would
mean,
say it wasn't long. Like, he didn't even start the season.
He didn't even make it
to the regular season.
Yeah,
he didn't.
He got cut in the preseason, and there was that video he made of himself where after he was all excited that he found out he got released from the Raiders, and he ran around and danced in his yard and was like celebrating with his mom, I think it was, and just was. It just didn't make any sense because, like, dude, you're out of a job now. Like, there wasn't any guarantee that anybody would pick him up. And then of course, you look at New England and the sexual assault allegations, and he only played a couple games there, and it looked like he was out of the league forever at that point. And then now with the whole fake vaccination card thing, and then obviously today, just leaving in the middle of a game. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, and there's no telling how much
especially
money he's
leaving the
going
way
to lose.
He did.
Yeah,
right. Because, like, some people leave in the middle of the game for like an injury or like whatever. But like
no like healthy player just walks off the field midway through the game. And it's not like it's, and usually when the stuff has happened, it's on a team that's doing really bad, and the player is really pissed off, and they're mad they're losing or whatever, and then they storm off or something. But the Bucks are a playoff team. I mean, they're a Super Bowl contender. Obviously they were losing this game at the time it happened, but this is a Super Bowl contending team. He was getting plenty of targets. It's not like he was never seeing the field or not getting looks or opportunities. I mean, like, literally last week he got almost all of the targets when Evans was out, because of course they're already down Godwin too. So he basically was getting all of the targets the week before. So it doesn't add up. There's no logical reason why he just walked out other than something is wrong mentally.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So that's going to shelve the Antonio Brown talk for the episode. Now, moving from a former Steeler to a current Steeler, obviously the man himself, Big Ben Roethlisberger, in what is all likelihood going to be his last game at Heinz Field tomorrow night against the Cleveland Browns. Surprisingly, the Pittsburgh Steelers are still in the hunt for the playoffs, although they would need a couple things to go right for them to get in. One of them, namely, being the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Indianapolis Colts next week. So I'm not feeling entirely.
Good luck with that.
I was like, I'm not feeling entirely too hopeful about that one happening. But anything can happen. At the very least, though, he's got a chance to, the Steelers can salvage a second place in the division. It's always good to finish ahead of some of your division rivals. Finish ahead of the Ravens, finish ahead of the Browns. So we'll see how it goes. But obviously, a storied career for Ben Roethlisberger. I got some of his stats here. Recently he passed Phillip Rivers for 5th all-time on the all-time passing leaders list. I mean, you look at the 4 guys ahead of him, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, all, some of them already in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, Brees and Brady will be there one day when they're eligible if Brady ever retires. But and then, I mean, it's crazy to think, too. I mean, and he's 8th all-time in passing touchdowns, which, oddly enough, depending on what happens these last 2 weeks, he could go as high as 6th. He's only 5 behind Phillip Rivers in 6th place. And the gap to 9th place, Matt Ryan, is a pretty steep one. It's like 80-something touchdowns, so he's pretty safe where he's at for now. But obviously, a 2-time Super Bowl champion, multiple-time Pro Bowler, and it's definitely going to be weird for me as a Steelers fan not seeing him on the field. I mean, this guy, I've been a Steelers fan since I was like 4 years old, and pretty much around when I was 4 years old was the year the Steelers drafted him. I remember when he was a rookie, and at that point I still didn't really understand football very much. It was just kind of like, it's an interesting thing to watch, but I don't really know anything that much. But I got to see him, come in and take them to that 15-1 season. Unfortunately, it ended the way that a lot of our seasons did under him, which was a loss to Tom Brady and the Patriots in the playoffs. I don't know how I'm ever gonna live those down. I wish Tom Brady never existed. But but
I think a lot of people say that.
Oh, trust me, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm probably not the only one on this podcast either that somewhat wishes that. Nate, I know, obviously enjoyed it, but he might be the only one. But yeah, so I got to see that, and then I got to see 2 Super Bowls in his first few seasons. They won it in 2005, almost in spite of him, unfortunately. But then the performance he put up in 2008 against the Cardinals, which is where this picture is from. A great performance, and just. Like I said, it's going to be so weird not seeing him under center because he's been the guy my entire life under center in Pittsburgh. And, there's not really many teams that can say that. I mean, other than like the Patriots and, like I said, I'm sure it was weird for Saints fans this year not seeing Drew Brees, and, same for Giants fans without Eli Manning when he retired. All these legends, when you see them go, I know, most teams are in the situation kind of like how, the Browns and the Jaguars and the Bills before Josh Allen, teams like that, where they just seem to cycle through quarterbacks every couple of years. It really makes you have to step back as a fan and just appreciate, with all the people that have been hating on the Steelers this year, like all of our fans. Of course, I could get into another rant like I did last year about our fans, but just appreciate the time you have with some of these players, watching them on the screen. It's obviously they're not going to be around forever, and a lot of these players, you have to think like, when they've been around so long, just appreciate everything they've done for you as a fan and for you as a viewer. And I hope he enjoys his retirement because it's well earned. He's suffered a lot in the NFL. Out of all those quarterbacks in the 2004 class, he definitely took the most abuse out of all 3 of them. I'm surprised he actually lasted longer than both of them. I thought he for sure was going to be the first one to retire out of that group, but he's a tough guy. Lo and behold, he decided to come back, and that's just been my overall experience with him. First ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. I don't know if you guys want to touch at all on Roethlisberger's career, but obviously it's going to be the end for a great player.
Yeah. I'll touch a little bit. Definitely, like you said, I mean, this is going to be so weird for you you've had seasons where he's gotten hurt and stuff, but you always expect him to come back. Right. I know he's been flirting with retirement, but he hasn't retired until now. So it's like the end of an era now with, other than Tom Brady. I mean, like all the guys you mentioned, Brees, Manning, Rivers, all like those guys.
Brady and Rodgers are the only ones left, basically.
Yeah, Brady and Rodgers. And Rodgers, he had a little bit later of a start. And I know whenever he leaves Green Bay, it'll be a similar thing. But yeah, it's crazy that era's come to an end, and it's going to be interesting to see like what the Steelers do in this year's draft. If there's a QB they like, are they going to wait a year, like a gap year without a quarterback? We still don't even know. Like they could potentially go on a playoff run if they make the playoffs with him. It could happen. It's very interesting. And definitely going to be a guy to look back on in a couple of years when he gets in the Hall of Fame and remember all those memories and all the games. Because, I mean, the Steelers, they've been so consistent all these years in the AFC. Other than the Patriots, they've been right there. So that's my thoughts on Ben. Eric, I don't know if you want to add on.
Yeah, no, I think you guys have pretty much hit all the good points. Great career, obviously, and he will be missed. Even it's one of those deals. I mean, obviously, as a Jaguars fan, while we're not in the same division with the Steelers anymore, but we've still had a rivalry with them, meeting in the playoffs, a few times, and had some heated regular season games and stuff. And obviously, I hated Ben Roethlisberger through a majority of his career, but it's still one of those things, though, that once he's gone, it's like, man, you're gonna miss him, though. You're gonna miss that extra level of competition that he provided. And obviously, the Steelers could get somebody in the future, just as good as him, maybe, but like how the Packers did from going from Favre to Rodgers. But he just had a extra level of talent, was great for so many years that the league is definitely going to miss him when he steps down. So, and Connor's right too. Definitely first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. He'll get in first chance he gets.
All right. Well, that's going to be the end of the Ben Roethlisberger talk. Who knows? Maybe we will be talking about him later if somehow the Steelers end up making the playoffs. But like I said, go Jaguars.
You will not hear Connor say that very often. So
yeah, gotta get first things first. Got to get past Cleveland tomorrow. Because if we lose to them, then obviously all this potential playoff talk is for nothing. So. But let's move on to our games of the week. There's obviously some very big ones here this upcoming week. We're on the cusp of the playoffs, only 1 week to go. We're finally starting to get a slightly clearer picture in the AFC, given that, finally going into this week, only 3 of the teams have been eliminated, which is crazy. But now we're finally starting to get a clearer look with some more teams being eliminated. But Eric, talk about this first game for us.
Oh, actually, I'll talk about it.
That's right, Zach. Yeah, Zach.
I was like, wait a minute.
So the first game we have going on here, this is a game that would have had a lot more meaning to it had Miami won this week against Tennessee. But it's going to be Patriots at Dolphins here, and the Patriots. There's still stuff on the line here with this game. The Patriots could win the division if somehow the Jets were to beat the Bills and they win this game, and still they want to win to keep a better positioning for their wild card standings. They don't want to be the 7 seed probably. So as far as the Patriots, and also too, I know they beat Jacksonville today, but that's, not much of an accomplishment really. I think they need this win to keep some momentum going into the playoffs, because if they lose this, they lost 2 in a row before this week's game. So it's important from that aspect too, like to keep winning and proving that you can beat good teams like the Dolphins. And the Dolphins, I don't think the Dolphins are going to cow down. They hate the Patriots. They tend to play well in Miami against the Patriots. I remember even in Brady's last year with them, I think they won that final regular season game against the Patriots. So they play them tough every time. And I'm actually going to take the Dolphins in this. I just haven't – I know the Patriots, scored 50 points today, but I just haven't been a Patriots believer all year. And they're a good team, but they're not a great team. And I think the Dolphins are the same way. And I give them the home field advantage and the win here. I will go with a score 24-20. Eric, what about you?
Well, Zach, I think you're crazy, man. You crazy, bro. No, like New England needs this for playoff positioning, and Miami is out of it, but not obviously they're rivals, and I'm sure Miami would love to play spoiler and hurt New England in the rankings and cost them any chance at winning the division. But I mean, Miami just even today against Tennessee, when they controlled their fate and had, if they were to have beat Tennessee today and then won this game against New England next week, they'd get in the playoffs. But even with them controlling their fate, they just got absolutely destroyed and looked abysmal. And I think they have absolutely zero momentum on their side. I'm sure they're really down about knowing now that they for sure cannot make the playoffs. So even though New England has to go on the road for this game, I expect New England to win, and obviously I will be rooting for Miami. Don't get me wrong there, but I really think New England's going to win this game, and I think they'll win pretty easily. I'm going to say they win 27-13. So Connor, it's 1-1. What's the tie-breaking vote here?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is definitely an interesting game. Obviously for the Patriots, they definitely have the tougher test here. The Bills, all they got to do is take care of business at home against the Jets, and they win the division, which, the Jets on the road this season have been really bad. Like at home, they've definitely had some good moments, like, when they beat the Titans, they beat the Bengals, and then obviously making it close against the Bucs today. But on the road, the Jets have been abysmal. So, the Patriots can't hope for much, but at least to have that slim sliver of hope. But obviously, like you said, the Patriots do want to win, because if they do win, they'll clinch that 5 seed in the AFC. So at the very least, if some things go a certain way, they could end up hosting a playoff game at some point. And obviously, they'll get a matchup with whoever the lowest seed is, which in the AFC, who knows this year? So it could be a rematch with the Bills for all they know. But and also, like, the Patriots do have some kryptonite going down there in Miami. I mean, it's still the only stadium in the NFL that Tom Brady has a losing record in, which is crazy to think that he even has one stadium that he has a losing record in. But Hard Rock Stadium is his kryptonite. But Tom Brady's not there, and I do think the Dolphins have been getting a little overrated on this win streak they've been going on, because, I mean, if you just look at the teams they had been beating on this win streak, like, yeah, that win over the Ravens was impressive, but then it was like the Jets, the Giants, the Jets again, the Saints, who are not really good, the Panthers. So they've been beating a lot of really bad teams, and they finally went up against a good one this week and got slaughtered. So I am going to agree with Eric and go with the New England Patriots. I think it'll be a little closer than Eric thinks. I don't think it'll be a super easy win, just because, New England, like Zach mentioned, teams to struggle down in Miami, even with Tom Brady being gone. So I'm going to give it to the New England Patriots, though. I'm going to say they win 24-20. And Eric, take this next game for us.
We got two 24-20s there, but with different teams. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting there. So next matchup we got, this is going to be another pretty big deal here. We've got the San Francisco 49ers going to the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, the 49ers need to win this game to secure their playoff spot. And then the Rams want to win to make sure they secure the division. Since the Cardinals got back in the win column today, they're still tied. So,
the Rams are one game ahead, but if the Cardinals win, they still take the division.
Okay, that's right. There was a lot that happened today with all these standings, and
yeah,
hard to keep. Yeah,
no, the Rams are a game ahead, but I guess the Cardinals have the tiebreaker on them.
Yeah, but if they win, then they for sure get the division. So this is going to be interesting, just because, for one, with the 49ers, I really doubt that Jimmy G comes back from that thumb injury. From what I've heard about it, it sounds like a pretty bad injury. And I can't remember who it was, but there was actually somebody in the NBA that had a really similar injury, and they're going to be out for several weeks. So I really think this whole deal, like this week, they were hyping up that Jimmy G could still play, and I think that was just more so to try to throw off the Texans in their game plan or something, or future opponents, just to try to make it look like he could still play. But I really think he's done at least for now. So the 49ers will most likely be rolling with Trey Lance in this game. And he had some moments today against the Texans, but he really struggled for a while. And of course, against the Texans, if you're struggling against them of all teams, then that's pretty bad. They're one of the only few teams that's like down there, a little bit better than the Jags. I had to kind of roast my Jags there a little bit.
I was say, the Texans did beat them both times.
They did. But they're down there with us still in the cellar. They were one of the only 3 teams that was out like us. So
yeah.
And again, fire Trent Baalke. But anyway, so the Rams though they went on that phase where they struggled there for a bit, where they lost 3 games in a row, but they've now actually won 5 games in a row since then. And while it was kind of an ugly one today, they did manage to come back and beat the Ravens on the road. So my gut feeling tells me that the Rams will win this game. They're also at home, which gives them an advantage. And Green Bay's looking pretty comfortable against Minnesota here right now, going into halftime almost. But they could still get that number 2 seed, which would be a pretty big thing to get. So, and of course, obviously they don't want to lose and fall down to that 5, 6, and 7 range. So I think the Rams are going to win. Trey Lance will probably struggle for a bit. I think the Rams will win fairly easily, but it is a rivalry game. But I'm still going to say the Rams take this one 30-17. Zach, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. Jimmy G's not playing. I don't think even in the playoffs Jimmy G comes back. And I agree with you on the score here with the Rams. I think it's not going to be close, actually. I know the Rams, Matthew Stafford scares me. Trust me, I don't think the Rams are going to do great in the playoffs based on how Matt Stafford's been playing recently. But they're playing the 49ers. They're going to want revenge on them because they lost to the 49ers the last time they played, and it was kind of embarrassing for them. So I'm going to pick the Rams to win. I'll say in a blowout here, Rams will win 38-13. Connor, what about you?
Yeah, I do agree with you guys that the Rams are going to win this. Like you said, I think Trey Lance is going to struggle. I think, the Niners just don't have enough on offense, even with guys like Eli Mitchell and, Deebo Samuel. I just don't think they'll be able to do enough. The concern for me a little bit for the Rams, like you said, with Stafford, he's been really inconsistent. And this 49ers defense is good. So I'll be interested to see how well they do at getting to him. If, Nick Bosa can pile up a couple more sacks, if, Fred Warner does some stuff, to stop the run game they have going. I think it'll be a little bit more of an interesting game. Obviously, especially if Stafford struggles early, because if Stafford is on it from the beginning, then this will be a blowout. Like, when Stafford's on, then this Rams team is, in my opinion, they are like a top 2 or 3 team if Stafford plays the way he should. I think, there's not many teams that can keep up with him. But if he starts to have some of those early struggles, then I definitely think that, like Zach said, come playoff time, it's going to hurt them. But at least against the 49ers at home, I think they'll be able to overcome that. I'm going to say the Rams take this one 28-20. All right, so then our last game of the week is going to be the most important game of the week by far. Out of all these games, is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this game currently is in the 4 o'clock slot, but given the importance of this game, I have no doubt it's going to be flexed to the Sunday night spot in the lineup, because whoever wins this game between the Raiders and the Chargers will clinch a spot in the playoffs. And depending on what happens, the other team that loses could be out if enough things go wrong, because obviously the Patriots have already clinched, so all that would need to happen for the team that lost would be either the Colts would need to win, or the Ravens would need to win, or if the Steelers win today and the Steelers win, then that team is out. So very, very high stakes in this game. The Chargers coming off a really dominant win over the Broncos. The Raiders coming off, they did beat the Colts today, so A good win on the road for them against the Colts, except Derek Carr did struggle quite a bit in the game, but they were able to pull it out in the end. But for me, in this game, I am going to have to go with the Los Angeles Chargers. To me, I know obviously they had that bad game against the Texans last week on the road, but to me, I just still think this team is the better team. You know, they really took it to Kansas City the week before the Texans game, and obviously Kansas City is like, you know, they're kind of back on top of the world right now, despite the loss to the Bengals today. They still looked pretty good. And obviously, speaking of the Bengals, the Chargers threw a whooping on the Bengals on the road a couple weeks before that. So I think this Chargers team is more talented. I think Justin Herbert is the better quarterback. I think Austin Eckler is the better running back. I think the Chargers have a better offensive line. It's just, you know, can you put it all together for this game? And I think the Chargers are going to be able to do that. I think the Raiders are going to struggle again. I think Derek Carr is not a playoff caliber quarterback. It's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to come down to potentially a game-winning drive from Justin Herbert. And I'm going to say that the Chargers take this one 31-28. Zach, what about you?
All right. I'm going to take the Las Vegas Raiders in this for a few reasons. Number one, the Chargers, the last 10 games have just been way too inconsistent. I mean, they're good is as good as it gets. They're bad as it gets. So that scares me to pick the Chargers. Second of all, the Raiders, they've been doing pretty good recently. I have a 3-game win streak going on. They're starting to heat up a little bit. And they had an important win today against the Colts, who before today's game, everyone's like, oh my God, the Colts are a dark horse to go to the Super Bowl. Everyone's all loving the Colts. And they finally beat them. They beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, I remember. And Derek Carr, I think, is being really slept on by people. I mean, he's really going under the radar this season. I know the first 2 weeks he had, was the MVP favorite or whatever after 2 weeks, but I think he's been very good. The Raiders, they want to make the playoffs for sure. They haven't been to the playoffs in a while. And another thing that's going to help them out here too is the fans. I think they haven't made the playoffs. This is only their second season in Las Vegas, but I guarantee you the Raiders fans are going to make this a difficult place to play. It's going to be very loud. It's going to be very pro Raiders. And I think all these things combined are going to allow the Raiders to win the game in a close fashion. I'll say something like 30-24 Raiders win. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, this was the toughest one for me to decide on this week out of the three of these. I mean, this is truly a game that could go either way, but it's kind of crazy because I was really debating this beforehand, so I was happy that Connor picked Zach next. I wanted to hear like each of y'all's points, but I am going to take the Raiders as well. I'm going to agree with Zach here, but mainly just because of the inconsistency of the Chargers. It's almost like each week you don't know which Chargers team you're going to get. And Zach and I, when Zach was here to visit me, we saw a lot of the Chargers-Texans game, and just seeing how bad they were in that game against a weak team was just crazy. Whereas then, they go out and destroy Denver, a team who was still, granted the odds were low, but still a chance at making the playoffs and destroying them pretty easily. But which Chargers team are you going to get? And I just don't know. So whereas the Raiders have been they've been more consistent lately, so I am going to take them, but it is going to be close. I think this is going to be the best game of the week. I will say the Raiders win 27-24.
Yeah, truly, this this for sure, guys, is going to be the one to watch. I mean, I think that Pittsburgh-Baltimore one could be one to watch if the Steelers end up winning this week and maybe make it interesting. But that one, whoever wins that one still would need some help. At the very least, this one is guaranteed. Whoever wins is in the playoffs. So very, very high stakes. Now we will move on to the lockboard. This was the penultimate round of the lockboard for this year. And unfortunately for Zach and Nate and I, we're going to be offering an official congratulations to Eric on winning the lockboard this year. currently a 15-point advantage over Zach, which means that next week Zach would need to get all 5-pointers, all correct, and Eric would need to get 0 points. But given the likelihood that Eric is going to be, taking some of these like Bills over Jets and, Packers over Lions 1-pointers next week, the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. So congratulations to Eric on the lockboard win this year. He did have the worst week out of the four of us this week with only 3 points. But that brought his total up to 72. Zach, Nate, and myself all had 5 points, so we maintained our same spot. Zach in second with 57, Nate in third with 54, and myself with 49. But before we go to the picks, Eric, just a couple words, man, on your victory this year. And the three of us are going to be owing you $10 each.
Yeah, I'll be glad to get $30. That's going to be nice, and especially since my fantasy teams were pretty bad overall this year. So this was my redeeming thing. And I will say, while I missed doing the live drafts, I definitely hope that next year we can somehow incorporate that. I think one thing that really helped me this year was just overall having more time to look and research everything, because like last year at this time we were recording on Mondays and that was when we would make our picks, but I would always work all day and I would come home and like 20 minutes before the podcast started, we'd be okay, look at the picks real quick. And, the guys didn't have necessarily a ton of time either, but I would literally like walk in the door and we'd be like starting the Skype call and I'd just kind of look real quick. And so it was nice. I think that helped me because especially with college games, I don't know as much about college as these guys. So it was nice to have, more time to research those, and that helped me get more picks right, I think. But I'm hoping next year we'll be able to do the drafts live again instead of just picking who we want in advance and then getting whichever one we get in our order and everything. But hopefully we can combine it with that and having, a little more time. I think that'll definitely make it interesting next year. But yeah, it was a great year for me on the lockboard, and I am, obviously there's still like a teeny tiny chance Zach could get back in it, but I'm happy with my results either way. So GG's.
Yeah, that would be like I said, aside from the fact that you're going to be taking all 1-pointers for Zach to get all 3 of the 5-pointers, right? That would just to force a tie, even like that. That's even like it wouldn't even be Zach would win at that point. He would have to force a tie and then go into the playoffs. So
as well as I just say when we play Superstar KO got overtime at worst,
Yeah, basically. That's the problem is we haven't even come up with any overtime parameters. So maybe hopefully for us as rule makers that doesn't come to pass. But
for sure.
Anyway, we'll move on to the picks now for this week. I had the first pick predictably all 5-pointers. My first one was Michigan over Georgia. I definitely felt like I was surprised that Georgia was 7.5-point favorites in that one. I figured Georgia would be the favorite, but 7.5 for especially after the way Michigan had manhandled Ohio State and manhandled Iowa and how Georgia had that ugly loss to Alabama. I thought this could be a good. I definitely felt more confident in this one than the other playoff game, which I know Zach will talk about here in a second. But unfortunately for me, Georgia looked like the team that we all thought they were and completely blew out Michigan. All I can say, Georgia, is where was that against Alabama? Because Alabama wouldn't be in the playoff right now had you done that. So, hopefully y'all can find that against Alabama in the championship because, I can't stand to see Nick Saban and Alabama winning again. So, but past that, the next one I had was the Lions over the Seahawks. And, I thought that one would be closer because the Lions, we had talked about them before. They're kind of one of those like feisty teams, they play better than their record. And especially with how bad the Seahawks have been this year, I thought that could be a good one. But unfortunately, despite some major heroics by Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Lions still got blown out by the Seahawks, allowed and gave up 50 points. The only one for me that worked out was Central Michigan over Washington State. We always talk about these bowl games can go either way, and that one, thankfully for me, went the correct way, and Central Michigan pulled out a win. So at least got 5 points. For Nate's picks, he did not go with all 5-pointers. I guess he had pretty much resigned and given up at this point. He had Penn State over Arkansas in the Outback Bowl. Arkansas pretty easily won that game from what I saw. But his next two, that was for 2 points. His next pick was the Cardinals over the Cowboys. Got a little hairy for the Cardinals at the end, but they did manage to hold on and win for 3 points for Nate. And finally, he took Oklahoma State over Notre Dame for a 2-point play. That one ended up being close at the end, but Oklahoma State pulled it out. Now, Zach, talk about your picks.
Yeah, so I went with the all 5-pointers again, like I've been doing the past couple weeks. And, funny now, finally now, late in the season, I'm getting some 5-pointers actually hit for me. And it'd have been nice earlier in the season when I didn't have to force these to get them. But I got Vegas over the Colts, right? I just talked about Vegas before, how they beat the Colts. It was obviously, time expiring field goal sort of deal. That's how a lot of these 5-point wins happen too. You got to get lucky and get something like that to happen. So the Raiders winning made me happy. I was rooting for the Raiders, and I definitely wanted to pick them high up to win this game. Another theme of my picks here is, I'm at the point in the season where it's very small percentage that I'm going to win. So I wanted to pick things that I wanted to see happen. So that's why I picked the Raiders over the Colts. My second one was Jaguars over Patriots. Really wanted to see them beat the Patriots. Deep down, I knew it probably wasn't going to happen, but you as a fan, you always have that feeling like, oh, we're going to shock
happen.
Thing. Yeah, and so that one was clearly wrong. Same thing with Cincinnati over Bama too. Just really wanted Cincy to beat Bama, so I wanted to pick that one high up, and was really hoping like, man, this would be a great week if I get 15 points and all these teams win. So didn't happen. Only got 5, but I'll take it. Eric, what about yours?
Yeah, I was fortunate with my picks that kind of worked out for me too, because there was it was the week before, I guess, where every pick I made, I really in real life didn't want to happen, but I was at least happy to get the points. But this time, all 3 of my picks I had were ones that I wanted to happen. But I had Utah over Ohio State in the Rose Bowl for a 3-pointer, but Utah ended up choking their lead, and Ohio State stole the dub. I thought with Ohio State having a bunch of players opt out that I could get that one, but it did not end up being the case. So that was an L, but I did get the Raptors over the Clippers for my next pick, also a 3-point play. I was surprised the Clippers were favored as big as they were, because obviously they've already been without Kawhi all year, and then Paul George got hurt and he's out. And I think they had a couple players out with COVID as well, whereas the Raptors were relatively healthy. So Toronto did end up winning that game. And then finally, I took the Dolphins over the Titans. I thought with the Dolphins having their playoff lives on the line that they were going to play better, but I'm glad that, I've basically got the dub already and that the competition wasn't close, because that ended up being a horrible pick that I absolutely got wrong. But so yeah, those were my picks, but again, happy with my results, and yeah.
Yeah, so next week, like I mentioned, will be the last week of the lockboard. Eric will have the first pick, probably going to be all 1-pointers. Zach will have the second pick, probably going to still be all 5-pointers, just because of that slim hope that is still alive. Nate will have the third pick, and I will have the last pick. I'm probably going to go with a more conventional board next week, just for my pride or sanity, I guess, because obviously Nate and I are completely eliminated, so I won't feel bad about not picking all 5-pointers next week. So we're gonna
you can go for the bronze.
Yeah. I can pick some things that, like I said, I can do what you guys did. I could pick Pittsburgh over Baltimore if the Steelers aren't favored, and then maybe if since that'll be going on, I can pick whoever's. Well, actually, unfortunately, I think Georgia's favored in the national championship against Bama, so I'm not going to be picking that one. But I'll find some stuff.
There you go. Maybe the Hornets will be underdogs to somebody or something.
Yeah. There you go. I was going to say if hockey was involved, but the Hurricanes are at the top of the league right now, so they're not going to be an underdog against anyone, especially since our next game's at home. But yeah, so we're going to close the show talking about some the Hall of Fame finalists were announced a couple days ago, the 15 finalists. And if you are a football fan or a football I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but a Jaguars fan especially, you'll know who this guy is in the picture on the right here. We're going to get to him in a second. But for right now, I thought it'd be good for each of us to take one of these players on this list and give them a case for making the Hall of Fame other than the guy in the picture. Because honestly, for me, this definitely seems like the most up in the air class we've had in quite a while. There's not like a whole bunch of first ballot Hall of Famers that I think are going to happen this year, like did last year and a couple of years before that, when like all three of the first ballot ones got in, because it was like Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, and Calvin Johnson like all got in. So definitely more up in the air this year. So I will start with my pick, and my pick is going to be former Rams, Jaguars, and I think Patriots at some point too, receiver Tori Holt. To me, Tori Holt is just so overdue for getting into the Hall of Fame. You know, his partner in crime, Isaac Bruce, got in a few years ago. And I feel like he's just kind of suffered from this whole sort of thing that seems to happen with receivers in the Hall of Fame, where like they just don't get as much respect as they should. You know, it's like the Hall of Fame committee never wants to put in more than one every year. So a lot of these like really good receivers tend to get pushed to the side. You know, I think the last time they did two was like when they put Randy Moss and Terrell Owens in at the same time. Like I remember Terrell Owens got shafted for quite a few years of not getting in. Obviously, I don't like the way he acted when he finally did get in, but you know, I do think that he should have gotten in a long time before he did. But Torrey Holt's the guy I'm feeling with that about right now. You know, he had a fantastic career in St. Louis when he was with the Rams. You know, he was, especially after Isaac Bruce retired, you know, he was like the go-to guy for a few seasons in St. Louis. I'm sure our Uncle Mike could tell you all about him, the greatest show on turf. And the other thing about Torrey Holt, too, is that, you know, he may not have super great stats. You know, he's not in the top 15 all time when it comes to receiving yards. But I think just, you know, like I said, the importance that he brought to that team and, you know, just the impact he had on that field, especially with how he was still able to keep it up after Isaac Bruce was gone, you know, because the Rams still had, you know, after Isaac Bruce was gone and after Marshall Faulk left, you know, Torrey Holt was going to be the guy at that point. Steven Jackson was still young in his career. And Torrey Holt was still able to keep it going. Even, you know, he had a decent year, like somewhat decent year, if I remember correctly, when he was in Jacksonville. And his career on what?
He didn't.
Oh, he didn't? I thought he had like, I don't know if he had any touchdowns, but I thought he still had like 800 yards or something.
Oh, maybe, but I can't remember. Like, it was like it was like a blink in your eye.
Right. I was about to say, I'm sure it wasn't memorable, but like he still at least had a, you know, okay season. I think the other thing for me with Torrey Holt is that I think another reason why he's being pushed back a little bit is he had a little bit of a shorter career than most receivers. He only played for 10 seasons. So unlike some of the other guys on this list, like Andre Johnson and Reggie Wayne, who, you know, they may be ahead of him in stats, but they played for quite a bit longer than he did. So I'm going to give my vote to Torrey Holt. So Zach, who's your guy?
All right, so my guy here is going to be Reggie Wayne, like Connor just mentioned, another receiver. I don't understand that. Like, this is the Hall of Fame here. This isn't like, you're not trying to like make a selection of players that like look good together. Like, you need to take position out of it and just grade the players and put your 1 through 5. And if they're all 5 offensive linemen, then they're all 5 offensive. If they're all 5 safeties, or, you know, like, you shouldn't.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Like, because it's funny you mentioned safeties. Like, safeties have a really hard time getting in too.
Yeah. So I just think it's kind of stupid that there's these unspoken rules that you can only have one player per position or whatever. But with Reggie Wayne, we're starting to get to the point with these Hall of Fame inductions where a lot of the guys I can remember watching, you know, I'm not the oldest football fan out there, obviously. So Reggie Wayne's a guy that I definitely remember from his prime up until a couple of years ago. You know, it's only his second time being on the ballot. So just had a tremendous career with the Colts, always consistent. That's the thing I remember the most of him is consistency. You know, him and Peyton Manning had just as great of a connection as Marvin Harrison. Like Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne, to me, they go hand in hand. That's how good they were. So he had just a tremendous career, and I definitely expect him to make the Hall of Fame. He would be on my list for sure. Eric, what's your final pick?
Before Eric gets to his, I will attest to what Zach is saying. How I had Reggie Wayne on my fantasy team quite a lot during his prime, so he was one of those guys that I'd always pick. And I will say my favorite moment I ever had from Reggie Wayne was this was the first time it was the season where the first time I'd ever won a fantasy championship, and it was in our family league, like way back when. I think it was 2014, where Reggie Wayne I kind of took him like near the end of the draft. You sometimes do that with like a sentimental player. And I remember I had one week where like literally all of my receivers were on bye. Like I couldn't tell you who they were, but I had like a bunch of receivers on bye, and I still had Reggie Wayne on the team, and I had to throw him in there. And literally the only touchdown he caught all season was that week, and he somehow pulled out like a 13-point week for me, and that was by far like his best game of the year. So, I give a lot of my fantasy like success in my early days to Reggie Wayne. So, thank you for that. Eric, go ahead.
That's pretty cool, man. Yeah, so the pick I have, I do feel my pick is one of the most confident I feel like will get in, and that's going to be Demarcus Ware, who spent most of his career with the Dallas Cowboys and then the last few seasons with the Denver Broncos. He won a Super Bowl with Denver, and him and that defense were really the big reason why they won that Super Bowl, even though Peyton Manning was on the team. Peyton had regressed and was definitely not the same player he used to be, and it was really Denver's defense that carried them. And if you look out throughout his whole career, I mean, he had a stretch where he had 7 seasons in a row where he had double-digit sacks or higher, and in 2 of those seasons he had 19 and a half and 20, which is not far from the single season sack record. So the fact that he pulled that off is really impressive. And he also had 35 forced fumbles throughout his career, which is pretty amazing. I mean, this guy was just a defensive juggernaut, and just watching him play, man, he was always somebody like, man, I wish I had him on my team, Like, it would have been really nice if we could have had him. He just, phenomenal career, and I think just, with his statistics alone is merit enough for him to get in, and I don't know what else to say other than he was a beast.
All right, so good cases for all three of those guys. Hopefully for our sake, all three of them get in, so we look good. At least for Eric's sake, I think his guy for sure will get in, but we'll wait and see on Zach and I, because like I mentioned, receivers have a interesting time trying to get in. But the last guy we're going to talk about here, like I said, I mentioned he played for the Jaguars. That would be one Tony Boselli. Now, Tony Boselli has been a Hall of Fame finalist. I want to say I don't know how many times he's been a Hall of Fame. Yeah, it's been a long time. He's had like a stretch of quite a few years in a row where he had. I just looked at it. He's been a Hall of Fame finalist for 6 consecutive years now, and is yet to get in. I know a lot of people thought that maybe he should have got, maybe not last year, because last year was kind of stacked, but I know the year before that, a lot of people thought he should have gone in. The year before that, a lot of people thought he should have gone in. To me, this is like the year for him, given that, the people that he's around, because at some point here in a little bit, he's going to start entering that senior class where they're not even going to consider him for the modern era anymore, which is unfortunate. So he's getting towards the end of that. And this, like I said, this is a wide open class this year. This isn't like last year where, we had all these good first ballot choices. The only first ballot choice in my mind that's a for sure to get in is Demarcus Ware. The rest of them are kind of question marks, like Devin Hester and Andre Johnson and Jared Allen, I think, are all question marks, especially the latter two. Especially Devin Hester and Andre Johnson, I think, are huge question marks. So this is his time, in my opinion. I think it's overdue, but for the resident Jaguars fans on the podcast, I guess I'll start with Zach. Tell me about. Well, actually, I'll start with Eric since he actually got to watch Tony Boselli a little bit. Tell me about Tony Boselli and why he should get in.
Yeah, man. I mean, for the first few years of the Jaguars' existence, Tony Boselli was the anchor of this team. I mean, obviously 95, the expansion year, we weren't very good, but 96 through 99, we had 4 playoff appearances, and he was a huge reason for that. I mean, and my favorite game that I know of him, and I know he did this multiple times, but I know, Connor, I know your dad won't like this if he's listening. Sorry to bring up the bad memory, but in 1996, the Jacksonville Jaguars, is a second-year team, went into Buffalo and as huge underdogs and beat them in the snow. And Tony Boselli blocked it. Him and Bruce Smith, another Hall of Famer, went head to head, and Boselli just absolutely shut him down. Bruce Smith didn't get a single sack in the game, and I don't even really know how often if he even got any pressures. I mean, you want to talk about just absolutely. And the thing is, it's not like, oh, that was one game. I mean, he did this all the time throughout his career. It's just what he was known for. I mean, the only thing that really stops him from getting in and what's held him back from getting in is just that he didn't have that long of a career. He ended up going to the Texans as part of the expansion draft in 2002, I guess it was. And he ended up having a bad injury in like training camp or preseason or something, and then never played again after that. But I really feel like if he'd been able to keep playing, that he would have been in a long time ago. And I mean, just looking at his career, I mean, other than the expansion year, the Jags, he made the Pro Bowl every other season that he was a member of the team. He was All Pro 3 times, won the Offensive Lineman of the Year award in 98. And he's also on the 1990s All-Decade team, which for not even starting and playing until 1995 is pretty impressive that he made that. And also, I'm pretty sure he's one of the only members of the 90s All-Decade team that is not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, obviously this is my favorite team, and it can sound like bias, but I mean, the guy has the resume and the overall talent to get in. I don't really see why he's not, other than the length of his career. But like Connor said, this is a pretty wide open class, so I really do feel like this is going to be his best chance to get in. And the Jaguars have just, I mean, literally ever since our playoff year in 2017, like, we've just been pretty much absolutely garbage the rest of the time and had so many dark spots. But this would be like the one thing that would be a bright spot if he were to get in, and would at least lift my spirits up for a while if he could get in. So, Zach, do you have anything else to add here, or any other thing about Boselli?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, before my time, and Eric could speak better on his actual play, but I'll say I know it sounds good what you guys are saying. I've got my hopes up many years ago, and I'm at the point where I just don't think it'll happen. Unfortunately, I think another thing that really hurts him is the market. Being in Jacksonville, if he was, I think, on a team like the Cowboys or the Giants, a team like that, or the Packers, I think it would have helped him out a lot more. But being on the Jaguars, it's easy to be forgotten about. And while I didn't really watch him play much, I do watch a show, a Jaguars radio show every week that they do with him. He's one of the hosts with Pete Prisco. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He's a controversial CBS NFL guy, but Pete has been making the case every year for he knows like the Hall of Fame voters and stuff, and he always says like, hey, like, this is why he shows them all the clips that you're talking about of him being the best at his position and stopping all the great defensive players trying to pass rush. But I just think a lot of these Hall of Fame voters and stuff, I mean, I just think it would have happened already if it was going to happen. So I'm personally not going to be expecting him to make the Hall of Fame. I know this is like his best chance and everything, and everyone's like, he has to. But I mean, I've felt that for a while now, and he hasn't made it. So I'm not getting my hopes up with this one, but hopefully he does.
Yeah, hopefully, at least I know for y'all's sake too. I mean, this is one thing that, you talk about the struggles of the Jaguars. Unfortunately, they do hold the distinction as the only team in the NFL that does not have, at the very least, like, I know there's some teams like the Panthers and the Texans, like, that don't have primary inductees, because every player has like a primary induction as they go in, like the team they played most of their career with or whatever. But like, other people get counted as well. Like Ed Reed gets counted for the Texans, and like I know like Bobby Lane and Len Dawson like get counted for the Steelers, even though they only played like 2 or 3 seasons with them, or 1 season even. So, but the Jaguars, like, they don't have anybody in the Hall of Fame. They are literally the only team that does not have a Hall of Fame inductee. So, this would definitely be huge for the franchise if they could get it. So I'm hoping for you guys that it happens, because I definitely agree that he's long overdue. But, I guess we'll see on whatever the day before the Super Bowl is. I don't know what date it is this year, but February something, when the NFL honors comes through. I think it's February.
It's right before the Super Bowl. It's like
that's what I'm saying. It's February 5th this year, because the Super Bowl is. I mean, sorry, it's because the Super Bowl is going to be February 6th. So February 5th will be the NFL honors. So guess we'll find out. But thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this podcast. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. Follow us on Twitter at clutchcrewsport. Leave any questions down in the comments or on Twitter. We'd be happy to answer them for you on the podcast. And until next time, guys, we'll see you later.
Be clutch.
Peace.